Hello, everybody. Wherever you are on the planet, be it morning, afternoon, or evening. My name is Brand Elverston. Most of you know my history, and what we're doing today is we're doing a showcase of more innovative solution providers in the risk mitigation space. So those of you that know me, um, the operative word is innovative. So on this session, you won't see any legacy guys. You won't see the deep pocket people you always see at the trade shows that have the massive booths. But quite frankly, the offerings are the same as they were 30, 40, in some cases 50 years ago, just a different price point and a few minor adjustments to the technology. So our theme is, you guys know, on the Conversations on Retail larger platform that is owned, operated, and administered by Matt Pfeiffer, we have the Risk Mitigation Asset Protection channel. And in that channel, every month, typically, I will host a guest, either an officer from a major retailer, a defense technology expert. We've had General Petraeus was last August on military transitioning. We've had academics that are, and I know a lot of us roll our eyes on academics, but in this case, it was very factual and detailed, because I have experience with Dr. Adrian Beck out of the University of Leicester in the UK around risk mitigation on self-checkout. So we will always have a different tone. We're not going to be same old. We're not going to be myopically catch a crook. We're going to be a more broad approach, and understanding that the risks in the retail box not only are within the four walls and everything from receiving to refunds and all things between, but also in the near future, I hope to host a discussion from supply chain experts on answering the now unanswered question of how in the supply chain are losses accounted for on the retailer's invoices before the retailer receives the product. So, for example, big retailer, Target, send a purchase order to Procter & Gamble for $100 million of stuff. It is all manufactured and comes out of Asia, let's say. And then something happens, a container falls off the ship, or it never makes it to port for some reason. There's a fire, losses occur during supply chain. Beyond the carrier, undoubtedly would file a claim, potentially, if it's criminal, a police report. We all saw the rail yard looting, if you will, of the Nike product. Saw those on one of the many social media video clips of losses. How are those losses accounted for before it gets to the retailer? So you have the purchase order that comes through. I am researching now with supply chain or 3PL experts, how do they adjust those retail invoices before they get to the back of the distribution center at Target, to ensure Target is not paying for something that they never got? And that is, curiously, a question. And I've been working on this for about a month. And I'm more and more surprised that we don't have definitive answers of, yes, this is how it works. They go into the interrupt the PO flow in the EDI or however that works, and they would adjust, et cetera, to ensure the retailer isn't paying for something they didn't get. Because as we all know, that turns into shrink in the store. So presumably, if no adjustments take place, they do the annual inventory. The store, if I'm a Nike store, from a Walmart, Target, CVS, Walgreens, Meijer Foods, Kroger, all of a sudden we have shrink, and it could lead us to ineffective and wasting capital protecting merchandise that disappeared before it ever came to the store. So a little off topic, but not so. We're going to change those gears as soon as I can get some SMEs in that space to help us walk through that. But our theme is always going to be non-traditional. We have a great following. Matt, I believe, most podcasts, we have at least healthy double-digit listeners real time during the workday, which is saying something because I remember when I was on the clock at Walmart, I did not have an hour in a day to do nothing but listen to a podcast. But those post-event downloads on YouTube and the other media channels that Matt puts his product, our recordings out on, often run into the thousands of downloads and listenings. So it's always going to be non-traditional. We're not going to talk about legacy technologies. We will have some exciting news coming up. I'm confident. I'm headed to EuroSys. As many of you may know, is in Dusseldorf every year, has been for years. The larger show is every 3 years, and it's called Euro Shop, and it's everything retail. So literally, it's 15 or 16 or more convention halls full of everything retail, from flooring to lighting to fixturing to mannequins to points of sale. And there's always two or three of those 17 or so convention halls dedicated to nothing but retail tech. And that's where you find, yes, there will be legacy stuff there, but you find earlier stage product there. Reader's Digest version of capital flows, much more liberal flows here, or free flowing here in the United States. So you don't necessarily see that startup emerge too early. They wait, they get the money, they tinker with it, they refine it, they get somebody to buy it, somebody makes $1 trillion, and then you see it in a US trade show. In Europe, capital flows are much more restrictive and conservative. So the creator or the innovator has to get out in front of people sooner. And that's where I have found I've been going every year, Matt, for 2019, I guess, and then a couple times when I was with Walmart. But I always find much earlier stage tech, true startups, meaning a little fold up table, two younger people, a little oftentimes handmade sign, but an awesome technology solution on the table. So I will have a report back on that. Two things I'm doing in Europe. I'm going to EuroSys, which is every year because it's the tech part, and then Euro Shop is every 3 years. Same venue, same everything. I'll be going to the Retail Garage store, concept store in Berlin, a few blocks south of the Brandenburg Gate. It is founded and operated by a former Metro, German retailer, Metro innovations leader, who I met, I don't know, 15 odd years ago when I was with Walmart, and we used to tour the Metro Future store just outside Dusseldorf. Anyway, he runs this store, and the purpose of it is concept of new technologies. So I'm excited about that. It's relatively new. It's less than a year. So I'll have some updates from that. And the hope is that in the conversations with the leadership team there in a few weeks, is that we can introduce risk mitigation as a trial bed in the retail garage store in Berlin. So why do we not have, for example, a couple of showcase innovators you'll see on this session is good to go. Why would we not see that in Europe? The biometric access to not only restrooms, but any area you need control of that is a challenge. So fitting rooms, buy online, pick up in store employee doors where they can go in and out freely now. This would have biometric data requiring interaction so we know who's going in and out of those doors, when, and et cetera. Sync, SYNQ technologies up in Canada. You think about lock and showcases and how irritating and antiquated that is. This goes 2 steps above that. So the traditional locking showcase is homemade, piece of plexiglass with a padlock plate drilled into it and a padlock on it to protect product. Then you have, in some cases, quote unquote, smart locking showcases where you can scan or enter your phone number, or there's something required to be done by the retailer. And then you have the sync solution that is a layer above that. And I won't steal the show because you're going to see it here shortly, as a better answer to having to lock up merchandise. Risk Karma. So we've got a handful of, again, purposely and highly selective providers that we're going to showcase here. And then we'll do the same later in the year, depending on how Matt sees the rhythm, and hopefully bring you innovative solutions from Europe that I'll see undoubtedly at Eurosys, which, by the way, is typically attended by 100,000 people. So it's a much larger show than even NRF. Big show, I think, was 40,000, if I'm right, Matt. It was only 40,000 attendees. So the European show's 2x that on a routine day. So in the retail risk mitigation space, those that know me will know probably what I'm going to say. We are not in parallel universes with the operations technologies. So you think of buy online, pick up in store. You think of just walk out technology. You think of mobile scan and go. You think even of self checkout, which has been out there for more than 20 years. We in the risk mitigation space have never been coupled with the pace of retail operations technologies. Great example is self checkout. That was the late 90s. And I know I can go all the way back to the 80s, but really in the late 90s is number one, when I became familiar with it in a store here in Bentonville, Arkansas, in a Walmart store, and we looked at it. And it was a great technology. And as no matter how hard we tried, we simply could not get an integrated, effective solution into the software. The best we could do was the weight scales, which irritated the hell out of everybody. And 9 times out of 10, they were either inaccurate or the operator in the store turned them off because it was flagging when, the kid had put his Tonka toy on the weight scale to wait on mom, or she'd put her purse down, or dad would throw his wallet on there to get his credit card. All of those kinds of things added friction. And here we are 20 plus, maybe 25 years later, with the advent of Elverston, which was about 2014. I know they were founded before that, but their debut with the world's biggest was in about 2014. And that allowed, at least in my personal background experience, to scale the self-checkout technology without fear of giving the store away. Because we all know, as Dr. Adrian Beck has said many times, and I had him as a guest on a podcast, there is significant disproportionate loss on self-checkout versus man lanes. So we've never been parallel. We still aren't. Some of you may have seen my posts on LinkedIn talking about, is 2023 the retail risk mitigation industry's Sputnik moment? Many of us know what that means. For the one or two that may not, that are our listeners, is that going to shock us into getting serious about allocating real capital, not more money for padlocks and sheets of plywood and retired law enforcement or off-duty cops at the door, but truly align with store ops in parallel and be seriously considered when we say, you know what, that's a great solution, but there are inherent risks in that I don't think we have the appetite for. I don't think we have the tolerance for those levels of shrink. So we saw it hit the fan in 2022. Numbers showed up in 23. We're inventorying, obviously, what is this? February 5th. So it's a new FYI for most retailers. They're inventorying. So we're going to get another snapshot that will be our report card on, did what we did in 23 make a difference? Well, it's just that simple. So if our numbers still come in bad, if they are even increasing more, that's telling. If we see a significant, i.e., 5, 6, 7, 10 basis point reductions, then possibly what we did, those preventive measures we did last year, albeit antiquated and mid-last century solutions, did they actually make a difference? And it'll show up in the math. So I'm excited to see that. Matt and I talked about this a couple of times. That's our report card in asset protection loss prevention, is shrink. And so if we could get those universes to become more integrated, and there's some retailers that do better than others, but at the end of the day, whether you have a seat at the table or not is inconsequential if you don't get meaningful capital. If you can't get a carve out for real money to say, I need to be in bed with the people that are running the mobile scan and go, or pick your technology. And we have the power to say, slow down. If we don't have reasonable risk mitigation measures in place, whatever they are, be that um, body language readers or through AI and a camera system to know that Matt Pfeiffer just raked off the shelf clean of Crest White strips. That's not normal. And we should be able to alert to an existing camera system for customer service or associate intervention. So, do we have the capital for those types of initiatives? If we don't, all the relationships in the world don't really matter if we're not opening the checkbook. And that's what I'm an eroding degree of confidence that we're going to get there as a retail industry. But as I've said publicly, if 2023 shrink rates were not enough, I think it's going to be a challenge. And we're going to go with what my good friend Gary Smith at Target said during one of the podcasts is, and we both hate the saying the new normal, but this is more, are we ever going to get back to 2019 shrink rates before COVID? So we got to strip out 2020, 21, 22, and probably 4 years we've got to strip out because that's an anomaly. So if we're doing any this year, last year comparisons to that, hopefully once in a lifetime event, they're not going to be accurate. It's not a baseline comparison to anything normal. So if we're expecting to go back, and Gary's point was in 2019, Brian, if we're expecting to go back to 2019 shrink rates, we're going to be disappointed because fundamentally business has changed. Retail business has changed. Everything short of purchase order creation, supply chain, shipping. Think about all the problems we had during COVID with supply chain backlogs, container ships at sea for months waiting to get through. So you know that a lot of checks and balances and manual processes, et cetera, were waived in the spirit of being expedient and processing freight and getting it out of there, just like in a store. So we know when we had COVID, we reduced staffing for a lot of defensible reasons, for safety. We had people that used to catch shoplifters at the front door now counting people to make sure we didn't go above the counts. Do they have the mask, wiping down product, et cetera? And understandably took our eye off the risk mitigation ball to a degree. If I'm a retailer and I survived COVID and I did well, or at least held on with a healthy reduction in store staffing, be that 5%, 10%, some cases 20%, and I still crushed it, I'm probably not going to be inclined to go back to pre-COVID staffing levels because I just proved to myself I don't need it. So we transfix ourselves into saying, okay, we had efficiencies, we did really well, we don't need those people. We don't go back to that. But we failed to put in the formula, the reduction in customer traffic and the anxiety and the specificity that customers followed in their shopping experiences. It wasn't the same on the other side of the equation either. So solving for X, you have to look, we need to look at both sides to say we had the changes in the retail box, but our customers also changed, but they're back. And they're back in droves and they're shopping and they're spending and the economy is doing well. We've all seen the numbers. It's kind of surprising a lot of people. We didn't see the economy go off a cliff. So all of those things in the mix, again, the so what is, if you don't get the money to invest in these innovative solutions that you're going to continue to see on these broadcasts from us, it doesn't matter. If you play golf with a CEO, that's great. But if the CFO doesn't open the checkbook, and in my experience, doesn't give you, 40, 50, $60 million to go play with, it doesn't really matter because you're going to add friction as a reaction to a perceived dominant theft environment, and we're going to add friction into the shopping experience and take store operations back to where they work so hard to get away from. So these are technologies that have reducing friction in mind, automating manual processes, and help us solve more than just the often mischaracterized. And we've all seen the drama, on the news where the NRF study was edited, if you will, or retracted, et cetera, on the ORC. At the end of the day, every career asset protection loss preventer knows theft beyond that number we get at the end of the year. That's real. That hits the P&L. But the why is where it gets muddy. And depending on the sophistication of the said retailer systems, it can be anywhere from totally unknown to damn if I know to educated guesses at best. So to say that we look at that NRF study, and I filled it out for Walmart for years, guys, 20 years, and it's an estimation. We'd look at that study and I'd sit down with some of the senior guys and say, hey guys, what do you think? And we always tried to push ourselves since about mid 2000s and later, guys, theft is a problem, but it ain't the problem. If we are immersed in everything store ops, including supply chain, we know there are other risks and they're significant. We've got to be able to include that. And for us to say, as the NRF study said, that upwards of 65%, so 2/3 of every dollar that a retailer shrinks out was a combination of the occasional shoplifter, the ORC, and the internal cases of, unfortunately, our own people stealing from us. 2/3 of every dollar was stolen. That for a broad thinking retail operator is a bit hard to digest in aggregate. Now, I know certain stores, certain areas of the country, that's believable. It may be worse than 2/3, but in all 4,700 Walmart stores, or all 2,000 Target stores, or in all 260 odd Meijer food stores, is that a true statement? 2/3? I don't think so. Never have. Maybe an unpopular assessment, but don't think so. But we'll see in 2024. So if 2024 shrink levels continue or increase, one of two things could be true. We're not doing a very good job. If we're saying all of it's theft, then we're attacking it. We're still not making a difference, so that's on us. Or theft is not the majority of your problem. One of the two things is true. Now, when we self-evaluate and say, well, we asset protection are not doing a good job because stores are still blowing out, we've done everything we can. I get it. You're probably resource restricted. You probably lost staffing. You probably got redirected to buy online, order fulfilling. We did that during COVID. You were catching shoplifters today. Now you've been cross-trained to fill orders. I get it. But I think 2023, I hope, was our tipping point in our Sputnik moment to say, what in the world is happening? We have got to do something different. And again, with eroding degree of confidence, I'm not sure we're going to get to the point where it's received that way and we do meaningful, new, different things than what we've done in retail since retail came into existence. So a bit of a background and a dialogue encompassing what we do on Conversations on Retail and why, and what you can expect as a listener. If you're looking for legacy and the big, guy with the deep pockets that's been out there forever, you won't see him on this platform. You'll see these three that you're going to see here shortly. You will see more after my trip to Europe, to Berlin and to Eurosys. And as I travel the world, Israel, when things calm down over there, we have a pre-planned trip to go there. As many of us know, the tech and startup community in Israel is very robust. I could, if I thought about it for more than a couple of minutes, I could rattle off a few innovative providers that preceded the tragedies that unfolded that have come out of Israel. I have a personal experience with the Israeli Defense Force on my active duty years ago. exceptionally bright, persistent. They never take anything for granted, and that's exactly what's needed for meaningful innovation. So we'll see all this come together, but I want this to be the place that career asset protection loss preventers and retail operators that understand there is a component of their profit that includes risk mitigation. I want this to be the bus stop. I want this to be where I'm tired of seeing half my side counters locked up. Let's go listen to conversations on retail. Let's see where brand's going or the platform is going, or Mike Grain and on-shelf availability, or some of the other, I don't know, Matt, I think you said you had over a dozen channels. The purpose and the spirit of conversations on retail is not silos, it's a community. We're not there to say, okay, put on your blinders, they stole it all, so, go listen to that track for, the retired law enforcement and a padlock. Go talk to Matt Pfeiffer, completely independent of any risk consideration or appetite or tolerance. Let's go talk about how to keep product on the shelf. Well, anybody that's been in retail for more than 20 minutes understand those two are interconnected. If it's not on the shelf, we got to figure out why, and the why might be in risk mitigation component. So that's kind of what we do, guys. I'm excited about the very few and purposely selected, intentionally selected providers we're going to have. This list will grow as I travel the world, but here we are. So, Matt, take it away. Thanks.